Brett Bean. BrettBean.com. Hey everybody, Brett Bean here, and this is the last of the 4 videos. So we've gone from sketches, thumbnails, to finished pencils to describe our design, to ink finish. So now we're going to do our color work. So we're going to switch over to Photoshop is what I use. You can use anything. You can keep in Sketchbook Pro. You can do all of this in Procreate. Again, you can do any program you want. It has nothing to do with that. But here's the breakdown of how I would do color. So let's take it away. Alright, so I've turned off all my other layers, and because I've got pretty clean ink line works, I can sort of select, and what I do is I select the outside area, I expand by 2 pixels, and then I invert that, and what that does is it selects the opposite, and then I do a quick fill, so I can I try to solve one problem at a time. And that way I have the entire silhouette. I kind of know what the character is, so I can see the big picture. I try to work big from small. And so right now I'm starting to think about coloring my line work. And I'm going to make a darker red color. And knowing that I was going to color those hairs an actual color instead of just a black, but give it a little bit more of a color base instead of black and white. That's the luxury of working digitally. You can plan that out in advance. But quite honestly, I do it as well. If I do a real ink drawing and you scan it in, you can clean it up and grab all of the black lines and put that as a separate layer as well. So you can do the same technique with traditional media. You just have to be a little bit more savvy and a little bit more attuned to what Photoshop can do or your program to do to bring that out. So I am using a quick layer mask that will affect only the other layer that it's attached to. So if you click between 2 layers and you hold the Option key on a MacBook, or I believe the Alt button on a Windows PC, what it does is it links those 2 layers together, and so whatever you draw on top of, it will only affect the layer that it's linked to. So you can do it one of 2 ways. And in this other way, what I did is I just locked that layer with that top left button where it says lock on the layer that I want. So what that means is there are 2 solid ways to sort of take away the guesswork and how you're going to paint something, so you don't have to worry about going outside of the lines. Right now I'm just thinking about the overall lighting, and I don't have to worry about keeping in the arms, keeping in the tail, keeping in the little strands of hair. I'm just working on just the overall aesthetic of the lighting, and I don't have to fight myself on my actual paint strokes. So these are like big overlying, no special brushes. I don't use too many special brushes. I use this one that has a little bit of tooth to it, and then I use airbrush tools, and that's it. Here I am adding in a layer using the Option key on the MacBook to link that layer. And so what I do, especially with client work, is I separate my colors and my tones, strictly because so many clients want changes and fixes, and I've made a system that helps me navigate those changes when they come and say, oh Brett, we really like the skin tone of the character, but we don't like the color of the horns that you chose, or the eyes, or the hair. And so I have those on each layer so I can bounce back and forth and change those, so when they say, hey, change this, change that, it's a relatively quick and easy, painless process for the most part. So if you remember, in the second and third one, I penciled in the nails of our little guy, our little beastie, knowing that they were going to be a darker tone range, value range, than the rest of the character, than the skin. So this is the sort of start, and again I try to work big to small. So I think about the overall full aesthetics of everything instead of just noodling away at the head, which I think a lot of artists do. They kind of concentrate it, but the whole character is the whole character. It's not just one piece, right? So I'm kind of laying in ideas of what I want, but I bounce around because I'm really thinking about the entire image, not just one portion of it. So you can see me color picking and sort of just this I've chosen as just a character design. He's not really affected by real world lighting or anything like that, especially when I design a character for TV or movies or something like that. I kind of take away that element because it's too much guesswork for a 3D artist or an art director or somebody making the decision, or a writer or something like that. If I have all this real world lighting happening everywhere, it's hard for them to understand the base color and how lighting would affect that. So I kind of treat a character design as the base color is just very basic, and it's just about visual communication. And then if we were to get into like a painting, or we were getting into a scene with like lighting, whether it be, he's walking around in a heavily lit cave, or going outside for the first time and he's seeing the bright sunshine, then you'd have a lot more light affecting everything. But I basically kind of use local colorization for my designs, especially for information settings. So again, this is on a separate layer, so if an art director or somebody say like, hey, let's mess around, I want to see what blue eyes look like or something like that, it's really easy for you to grab that layer. If it's you painting on everything on one layer, I like to have all my decisions sort of planned out, and so it's easy to go back and fix. If this was a character design that was approved for a show or approved by me, if I were to do like a full painting, I wouldn't have all these broken down into layers. I'd probably break it down into foreground, middle ground, background, and paint in that way, instead of like this, where it's easy to change all this kind of stuff. I'm just adding a little bit of mood to the nose, and again using just 2 brushes, I think, for this entire process, just to kind of prove out that it's really not about which brush you use. A lot of people ask a lot of that stuff, but you can get a lot of compelling results for very little if you make a compelling character that people can care about, and just a little bit of highlight. Again, you want it to sit back and be a part of the character. If it gets too bright or gets too in your face, that's what you end up noticing. Not the overall design, but you'll notice that one piece. And so here I'm trying to knock back those horns a little bit, so the eye and the face is the most important standout thing. And it's very basic. It's not a lot. It's just enough information from point A to point B for a simple character design. And you could noodle this away ad nauseum. And if it was a full painting, I would have to take out all that line work and make sure that all that turns, and then you'd have, rim lighting and backlighting. So depending on how you visually communicate or what the end result is going to be, if this is going to be a splash page for a video game, you wouldn't necessarily design like this, even though you could. It depends on what aesthetics you're going for. And here I'm grabbing the inside of the ears, and I'm just gonna oh wait, that's on a different layer. Just gonna grab this other layer, and I'm just gonna tweak that base layer and move around those ears and see. I pull back because I want to see everything, especially when you're making such a color shift. It really changes. If you look, all those colors say something different, right? And every designer's, I could go back and forth on this thread. I can't tell you how many years I've done this over the year, where I've had an art director or CEO or somebody standing over my shoulder, and as you move this slider, I have a personal aesthetic that I go, there it is. and then that art director is going to have another set of eyes, and they're going to go, oh, that's my I like that. And then the CEO, every single person is going to have an opinion. So depending on whose opinion you're really listening to, and it's usually the person with a paycheck, that's where you're going to lean towards, right? So for me, I kind of like the cool blue because it also balanced out the red, and it made his face more interesting and kind of brought everything back up to the top of the head. So that's why I chose blue. But there was a couple choices in there that could have gone either way. Again, that's why I think like there's this. It's not black and white. There's so many subtleties, and it's all based off of preference. And there's no right or wrong to a lot of these choices. It's just, did you hit what you meant to hit? Does all the colors I choose and the way he looks and the way that he acts, does it reflect our end goal, which was a demon with a heart of gold? And the red of the demon sort of has to be that way, or else we have to describe the demon. I mean, it comes with certain connotations, so you go, okay, I'm going to stick in the red family because demons are traditionally red. And maybe you can branch off from there, but for this purpose, red worked. And it does the heavy lifting for what the character is really about, right? If we used blue and we got rid of the hooves and we got rid of the horns, it would just be like a Muppet, or it would just be like any monster. But because I had certain words that I used, we have to make sure that some of that stuff lives within a family that does the heavy lifting of understanding. So you're using that as an advantage, right? You want stereotypes aren't always there for good and bad reasons, but you want something to be relatable to what it is, right? It's kind of like why you wouldn't do a medieval setting and all of a sudden you give him like space goggles. You're like, well, that doesn't really work unless you were going to build off on that story. You'd go, that's kind of a fail. This is not the right time. This is not the right setting and all that kind of stuff. So each one of those decisions that you make, the right and wrong is based off of the purpose. Art is so subjective just in itself. Design is so subjective, so it's really about, do you go to a website and you can't tell what to click on? That's a bad design. And the same thing can be said about what we do as character designers. If you don't understand who this character is and what they are and kind of what they're about through the character design, it's kind of a fail. It's the click through going, I don't know what you want from this. And so whether complex or not, that's the whole crux of what you're trying to do. You're trying to figure out, how to make something relatable, new, fresh, but at the same time, something that people recognize. Here now I'm just adding a little bit of shadow just to have a little bit of, depth to the character. This is a multiply layer, I believe, and I'm using like a dark purple at it looks like 70%, just to sort of give a little bit of shape function. Again, because I draw so graphically, I enjoy making my shadows as shapes more than I enjoy the really sort of just overall blending of everything. I like having shapes within shapes, and shadows and highlights are really fun to play with as shapes, for me anyway. Somebody else, they're not going to feel that way. They're going to go the opposite. They're going to go, ooh, I don't like it. It doesn't look real. And again, it's not going to please everybody. So for me, I enjoy having a little bit of shape to my shadows. So everything has a little bit more crispness to it, just because it works with the type of artist that I am. So I'm just going to bring a little bit of that. You don't want to use black. Black will kill the drawing. So I'm using like a purple. And again, 70%. And And I don't want to be overwhelming with myself either. I don't want to get bogged down with that as a detail, because the whole purpose is not about the shadows, right? If I make them too strong, it becomes about the mood of it. And right now I'm just trying to show form. I'm trying to explain, visually communicate turning in space. Because again, this is a flat image on a flat screen, and you're looking at it on another flat screen. So we've got three things to contend with as it comes to making something look three-dimensional, right? So here I'm just using the lasso tool to sort of make a shape. My computer really chugged along for this section here. It didn't really want to record and do this at the same time. So I'm just speeding this portion up 5% so it goes a little bit faster, and we'll go back to normal here. So this is just me adding an overlay layer with a high yellow, and it's just barely there. I'm going to turn it into an overlay and turn the opacity down just a little bit. And then what I do is I kind of cut back into that just to kind of, again, create some shape. But again, not so overwhelming that it takes away from the face, which is, I think, the point. I think you look at the face first. I think you look up there, and I want you to keep you up there, and the other stuff is just information of who that character is. So I think we kind of have enough of a character design that you could have a full conversation with somebody. And that's
all right.
That's
so
our
thank you very much
with
for joining me for
goal.
these 4 videos, especially people who've gone through all 4 of them and listened to me talk yap the entire time. I appreciate it. Big thank you to anybody who's got the book and supported 3D Total and myself for the draw book, and anybody who goes out, tells other people about it, links to it, puts up a review on Amazon or Goodreads or wherever they are. It really does help. So thank you very much. I hope you love the book. I enjoyed making it. Big props to 3D Total for making this giant book. So I hope you like it, and I'll see you online. Find the book at 3dtotal.com, online retailer, or a good art store, or my website, or, someplace. BrettBean.com.